In the heart of Africa, nestled deep within the cradle of the Great Rift Valley, lay the village of Tabira. It was a place that seemed to have emerged from the very roots of the earth, a land of ancient trees whose branches stretched high into the heavens, casting dappled shadows upon the rich, red soil below. The village was surrounded by verdant hills that rolled like the waves of a great green ocean, and a river, the life-giver, snaked through the land with a gentle, eternal flow. This was the land of the Tabira, a proud people who had lived there for generations, their history as old as the mountains that encircled them. But despite its beauty, Tabira was a village shrouded in a dark and terrible secret. For as long as anyone could remember, the people of Tabira had lived under a curse that no one could escape. In this village, no one lived to see their 30th year. Children were born, grew into youth, and blossomed into adults, but before they could taste the full sweetness of life, death came to claim them. The villagers spoke of it in hushed tones, for the curse was a burden they bore with stoic acceptance, as if it were a law of nature, like the rising of the sun or the falling of the rain. The origins of the curse were lost in the mists of time, buried beneath layers of myth and legend. Some said it was the wrath of an ancient god, angered by a long-forgotten transgression. Others whispered that it was the doing of a jealous witch who had once lived among them, her heart blackened by envy and malice. But whatever the cause, the result was the same. The people of Tabira lived short, fleeting lives, their time on earth like the brief flash of a firefly in the night. Amma was a woman of the Tabira, known for her beauty and her strength. Her eyes were the color of the river at dusk, deep and full of secrets, and her voice was like the wind whispering through the trees. She had been born in Tabira, like her mother before her, and her mother's mother, stretching back through the generations. But unlike the women who had come before her, Amma had a restless spirit, a yearning for something beyond the village, beyond the hills that hemmed them in. Amma had been only 18 when she gave birth to her first child, a son she named Kofi. He was a strong and healthy boy, with his father's broad shoulders and his mother's quick smile. Amma loved him fiercely, with a love that was as wild and untamed as the land around them. But with that love came a terrible fear, a fear that gripped her heart and squeezed it tight, the fear of losing him. Kofi grew quickly, as children in Tabira did. By the time he was 10, he was already as tall as some of the men in the village, his limbs long and sinewy, his movements graceful like a young antelope. He had a curiosity that could not be contained, always asking questions, always seeking to understand the world around him. But Amma knew that time was against them. Each day that passed was one day closer to the day when Kofi would no longer be with her. The curse would come for him, as it had come for all the others. As Kofi grew older, Amma's fear turned into a quiet, simmering despair. She watched as the other children in the village grew up, only to be struck down one by one. Some died suddenly, with no warning, while others fell ill with mysterious ailments that no healer could cure. The village elders would offer prayers and sacrifices to the gods, but nothing could stop the inevitable. Death was a constant presence in Tabira, like a shadow that hung over the village, darkening everything it touched. Amma's husband, Kwame, tried to comfort her. He was a good man, kind and patient, with a heart as steady as the mountains. "We must accept our fate," he would say, his voice calm and steady. "It is the way of our people. We live as long as we are meant to live, and when our time comes, we return to the earth. There is no shame in it." But Amma could not accept it. She could not bear the thought of losing Kofi, of seeing him taken from her before he had a chance to live a full life. The thought gnawed at her, day and night, until it consumed her. She began to have terrible dreams, visions of Kofi lying cold and lifeless, his bright eyes closed forever. In her dreams, she would reach out to him, but her hands would pass through him like smoke, and he would fade away, leaving her alone in the darkness. One night, as she lay awake, staring up at the thatched roof of their hut, Amma made a decision. She would not let the curse take her son. She would find a way to break it, to save him from the fate that awaited him. She did not know how, but she knew she had to try. She could not sit by and do nothing while her son's life slipped away. The next morning, Amma set out on her journey. She told no one of her plans, not even Kwame, for she knew he would try to stop her. She kissed Kofi goodbye, holding him close for a moment, breathing in the scent of his hair, and then she left the village, her heart heavy with determination. Amma had heard stories of a wise woman who lived deep in the forest, beyond the hills that surrounded Tabira. The villagers spoke of her in whispers, saying that she was as old as the earth itself, with knowledge of things that had been forgotten by the rest of the world. Some said she was a witch, others a spirit, but Amma did not care. If there was even the slightest chance that this woman could help her, she had to find her. The journey was long and arduous. The forest was dense and tangled, a maze of towering trees and thick underbrush. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and leaves, and the only sounds were the calls of distant birds and the rustling of unseen creatures. Amma pressed on, driven by the image of Kofi's face, by the thought of holding him in her arms and knowing that he would live. After days of walking, her feet blistered and her body aching, Amma came to a clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing stood a small, thatched hut, smoke curling from a hole in the roof. Amma hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest, and then she stepped forward. As she approached the hut, the door creaked open, and an old woman stepped out. She was small and bent with age, her skin wrinkled like the bark of an ancient tree. Her eyes were sharp, though, and they seemed to pierce through Amma, seeing everything that lay within her. "I know why you have come," the old woman said, her voice low and rasping. "You seek to break the curse of Tabira." Amma's breath caught in her throat. "Can you help me?" she asked, her voice trembling. The old woman studied her for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. "There is a way," she said slowly, "but it is not without cost. The curse was born of great wrong, and to undo it, you must be willing to pay a great price." "I will pay it," Amma said quickly. "Whatever it is, I will pay it." The old woman nodded, as if she had expected this answer. "Very well," she said. "You must listen carefully, for the path you must walk is fraught with danger, and a single misstep could cost you everything." Amma listened intently as the old woman began to speak, her voice weaving a tale that was both ancient and terrible. She spoke of a time long ago, when the ancestors of the Batabira had lived in harmony with the spirits of the land. But there had been a betrayal, a breaking of the sacred bond between the people and the spirits. The curse had been their punishment, a way for the spirits to exact their vengeance. To break the curse, the old woman said, you must make amends for the wrong that was done. You must seek out the spirits and offer them a sacrifice, something that is dear to you, something that holds great power. Only then will they consider lifting the curse. Amma felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of sacrifice?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The old woman's eyes bore into hers. "You must offer them your life," she said. "The life of the one who seeks to break the curse." Amma's heart skipped a beat. "My life," she echoed. The old woman nodded. "Yes. It is the only way. The curse was born of death, and only through death can it be undone. If you are willing to give your life, the spirits may show mercy and allow your son to live." Amma's mind reeled. She had not expected this. She had been prepared to face danger, to endure hardship, but the thought of sacrificing her own life was something she had not considered. But as she stood there, the image of Kofi's face came to her, and she knew what she had to do. "I will do it," she said, her voice firm. The old woman nodded again. "Very well," she said. "There is a place, deep within the forest, where the veil between the worlds is thin. There, you will find the spirits. Go to them and make your offering. But remember, once you make the sacrifice, there is no turning back. Amma nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was about to do. She thanked the old woman and turned to leave, but before she could take a step, the old woman spoke again. "Beware the shadows," she said, her voice low and ominous. "The spirits are not the only ones who dwell in that place. There are others, creatures of darkness who feed on the souls of the living. If they catch you, there will be no escape." Amma shuddered, but she did not hesitate. She had made her decision, and there was no turning back. She left the clearing and plunged back into the forest, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Amma walked for what felt like an eternity, the forest growing darker and more foreboding with each step. The trees loomed overhead like silent sentinels, their branches twisted and gnarled, their leaves rustling with the whispers of unseen voices. The air grew colder, and a thick mist began to rise from the ground, swirling around her feet like a shroud. Finally, she came to a place where the trees parted, revealing a small, circular clearing. In the center of the clearing was a pool of water, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky above like a mirror. Amma knew at once that this was the place the old woman had spoken of, the place where the veil between the worlds was thin. She approached the pool, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and she could feel the presence of the spirits all around her, watching her, waiting. She knelt by the edge of the pool and closed her eyes, offering a silent prayer to the spirits, asking for their forgiveness, asking for their mercy. As she prayed, the air around her began to thrum with energy, a low, vibrating hum that seemed to resonate deep within her bones. The mist thickened, swirling around her in a vortex of white, and she felt a strange sensation, as if she were being pulled from her body, drawn into the pool before her. She opened her eyes, and to her astonishment, she found herself standing in a different place. The clearing was gone, replaced by a vast, open plain that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The sky above was a deep, inky black, and the ground beneath her feet was cold and hard, like stone. In the distance, she could see figures moving towards her, their forms indistinct and shadowy. As they drew closer, she realized that they were not people, but spirits, their bodies made of smoke and shadow, their eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. Amma's heart raced with fear, but she forced herself to stand her ground. She had come too far to turn back now. She watched as the spirits approached, their faces expressionless, their eyes fixed on her. One of the spirits, larger and more imposing than the others, stepped forward. Its eyes bore into hers, and she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "Why have you come here, mortal?" the spirit asked, its voice a low, rumbling echo that seemed to come from all around her. Amma swallowed hard, forcing herself to speak. "I have come to break the curse that has plagued my people for generations," she said, her voice trembling. "I offer my life in exchange for the life of my son." The spirit's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, the spirit spoke again, its voice colder than before. "The curse was born of blood, and only through blood can it be undone. If you are willing to give your life, we will consider lifting the curse. But know this, once the sacrifice is made, there is no turning back. Your soul will belong to us, and you will never see your son again." Amma's heart clenched with fear, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had known the risks when she had set out on this journey, and she had made her decision. "I understand," she said, her voice steady. "I am willing to make the sacrifice." The spirit studied her for a long moment, its eyes boring into hers. Then, it nodded. "Very well," it said. "The sacrifice will be accepted. Step forward, and offer your blood to the spirits." Amma took a deep breath and stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She knelt before the spirit, her hands trembling as she reached into the pouch at her waist and drew out a small, sharp knife. She closed her eyes, offering a silent prayer to the gods, and then she pressed the blade to her palm, drawing it across her skin in a swift, clean motion. Blood welled up from the cut, dark and crimson, and she held her hand out, letting the blood drip onto the ground before her. As the blood touched the earth, the ground beneath her began to tremble, and the air around her grew thick with the sound of distant thunder. The spirits began to chant, their voices rising in a haunting, otherworldly melody that seemed to echo through the very fabric of reality. The ground beneath Amma's feet cracked open, and a column of light shot up from the earth, engulfing her in its blinding radiance. Amma felt a strange sensation, as if her body were dissolving, breaking apart into a million tiny pieces. She gasped, her vision blurring as the light consumed her, and for a moment, she felt a deep, overwhelming sense of peace. She was floating, weightless, surrounded by warmth and light, and she knew, in that moment, that she had done the right thing. But then, just as suddenly as it had come, the light faded, and she was plunged into darkness. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, numbing chill that seeped into her bones. She tried to move, but her body felt heavy, as if it were made of stone. She was aware of nothing but the cold and the darkness, a void that seemed to stretch on forever. And then, out of the darkness, she heard a voice that was not her own, but that she somehow knew belonged to her. "You have given your life for the life of another," the voice said, its tone gentle and soothing. "Your sacrifice has been accepted, and the curse is lifted. Your son will live, and the people of Tabira will be free from the shadow that has hung over them for so long." Amma felt a surge of relief, and for a moment, she allowed herself to hope. But then the voice spoke again, and its words sent a chill through her heart. "But there is one final price that must be paid," the voice said. "You must remain here, in this place, for all eternity. Your soul belongs to the spirits now, and you will never return to the world of the living." Amma's heart sank, and she felt a deep, crushing despair wash over her. She had known that she would have to make a sacrifice, but she had not expected this. The thought of never seeing Kofi again, of never holding him in her arms, was almost too much to bear. But then she remembered why she had done this, why she had made the sacrifice. She had done it for Kofi, for her son, so that he could live a long and full life, free from the curse that had plagued their people for so long. And in that moment, she found the strength to accept her fate. "I understand," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I will stay here, if that is the price I must pay." The voice did not respond, but Amma felt a sense of finality, as if the decision had been made. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to drift into the darkness, her thoughts filled with images of Kofi, his bright smile, his laughing eyes, the sound of his voice. She clung to those memories, holding them close to her heart as she surrendered to the void. Back in Tabira, life went on as it always had. The villagers went about their daily tasks, tending to their crops, caring for their animals, raising their children. But there was a sense of unease, a feeling that something was not quite right. The village felt different, as if a great weight had been lifted, but no one could quite put their finger on what had changed. Kofi, now a young man of 19, felt it too. He had always been aware of the curse, of the shadow that hung over their village, but he had never truly understood it. It was something that had always been there, like the air they breathed or the earth beneath their feet. But now, that shadow seemed to be gone, and Kofi felt a strange sense of freedom, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He thought often of his mother, Amma, who had left the village a year ago and had never returned. The villagers whispered that she had gone in search of a way to break the curse, but no one knew for sure. Kofi had tried to follow her, to find out what had happened to her, but he had found no trace of her, and eventually, he had been forced to accept that she was gone. But even in her absence, Kofi felt her presence. He knew that she had done something great and terrible, that had changed the course of their lives forever. And though he did not know what it was, he was grateful, for he knew that his mother had sacrificed.